Yes, Aditi.
Cool. So a very good evening to everyone. Thank you all the attendees for dialing in for today's session. As you can see, the title of the session is Commercialization of Indigenized Technologies. And in the forum today, we have representations from multiple incubation centers. We have representation from industry, and the entire session is being hosted by SIIC in collaboration with AI Med and Med Valley. The theme is the incubation centers have been playing an important role in helping these startups in not only in developing their technologies and product, but also helping them commercialize those technologies. We have witnessed fantastic growth in last 10-15 years, especially during the COVID wave. We saw startup community rising to the occasion and commercializing their technologies and meeting the demand of the country. So in today's session, we would be we'd be learning the best practices from these incubation centers. The flow of the session is we are going to have two invited sessions by Dr. Anand Krishnan and Dr. Tasleem, followed by a panel discussion. So with that, I would like to now introduce Mr. Rajiv Nath, although he doesn't need any introduction, but I'd be very, very quick. For those who don't know him already in the audience, he's the Managing Director of Hindustan Syringes and Medical Devices Private Limited. He's also the Forum Coordinator at the Association of Indian Medical Devices Industry, which represents the interest of over 1,200 manufacturers of medical devices in the country. He has contributed immensely to making India a leading hub for manufacturing medical devices and has played a major role in the COVID-19 response to the country. Welcome, Mr. Nath. With that, I would request you to introduce the session officially. And did you freeze? Over to you, Mr. Nath.
Thank you, Aditi. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to all the speakers, the panelists to this August gathering over here, and also to the kind delegates for taking time on a Saturday afternoon to listen in. So the idea has been in my mind for quite some time because I was interacting with various institutions for nearly more than a decade. And in the past, other than Shri Chitra Institute of Medical Sciences in Trivandrum, I never really came across a model or as an institution doing well or succeeding in bringing forward medical devices that could be available in the commercial domain. So they were the first institute whereby you had products like heart valves, sutures, bags, simple things like a blood bag being made in the country and technology being developed by them and then being shared with the entrepreneurs and then being made and come forward. And then those entrepreneurs became leading manufacturers. So people may not be aware, Termo is the world leader in India for making blood bags. They did it by buying out Penpal. Penpal was the largest manufacturer in India to make blood bags. And the technology platform, which may look very simple, started from Shri Chitra Institute. So, and the model they had used that time basically was, again, a very unique model, which why they were succeeding was that they were interacting and they were making sure that any technology has to be proven technology. So people may come forward with ideas as developers, as scientists, that this may impact public healthcare, this can impact healthcare, and this is a good product to be made as a medical product or a medical device. But it remains only on paper. That innovation or idea, which can be a patented idea or not, sometimes gets stuck only on the piece of paper and gets published in magazines or in articles only. And very rarely you will find that it's being picked up by somebody as an entrepreneur and brought to the market commercially. The developers typically would not go beyond a level of investing in proving their concept or their idea to show it physically. So many developers would reach out to me and ask HMD, why don't you make this medical device for us? Why don't you make this kind of innovative syringe or drug delivery system for us? But I would say, show me the product, and they would have nothing to show. Just an idea on a piece of paper or a sketch. And they say, we want you to spend lakhs of rupees, crores of rupees, and give me a royalty of lakhs and crores of rupees and make this for us. This is a typical experience I'm talking about. So Sri Chitra was the first one which I could see from the sidelines succeeding. And I interacted with their team over a number of occasions and learned how and why they were succeeding. Similarly, later on, the IITs came forward with more successful models, and I visited IIT Bombay, Professor Ravi, his BTech experiment, and I was enthralled with the success and the way he had created the teamwork between the doctors in raising the proposal and making teams so that the developers, the engineers, and the entrepreneurs or the commercial people, marketers could work as a team over there and give success over there. Increasingly, as IMED, we've been asked to work as industry partner or be on the board of committees of various CSIR or DST programs or the technology programs or the various hubs over there, and give our feedback as an industry association on various technologies or projects that they are trying to finance within the government means over there. And typically, this would be a rush job, half day or 1 day or 2 days of marathon of seeing 10, 20, 50, 80 projects, quick presentations, and somebody like me who's from a commercial background, not even a scientist, not even an engineer, being asked to give my commercial experience or my input on that, whether what is marketable, what is not marketable, what has got a huge potential. So it was too varied, too challenging, and such a diverse field that no one person can do justice to that. So we would seek that other people would be allowed to come in as a team, not as a person individually. And then I would ask other scientists or engineers or developers from IMED to come in over there and then help on that, or from that region over there, help on that, so that we could have a more wider interaction with that academic institute and see what is the commercial potential of that particular product over there. But increasingly, we were giving the feedback post that meeting to that institute, to that organization. The moderator over here is Madam Ramaji. She's also the joint coordinator for IMED. Is also a management consultant, wears many hats. So as a third party, she could also see over there that where are the communication issues, where are the management issues, which are the implementation issues over there, which are coming forward over there. And we would put forward our ideas and thought processes and give it to the various organizations, the DST, the DBT, that this is our honest feedback. You can take it as critical feedback or criticism or whatever, but this is not how it's going to work. We want to see things differently. Now, this is where it became interesting. Over the last 10 years, we've had Niti Aayog step in. We've had change of leadership in DBT and DST. And we started finding that in the last few years, a different ecosystem coming in the country in terms of venture capitalists, in terms of banking, in terms of private equity. And the whole ecosystem started changing so that finance no more became a huge barrier. And people started coming forward and seeking innovation and wanting to support innovative ideas with great potential. With that came the interest of the role of incubators. With that came the interest of role of standalone institutions, which could thrive in bringing forward commercial projects and see that they succeed. They're not only on paper, but they are being used. And I think the best we've seen success stories are in the last 2 years in COVID times. So we've had ACT being created, acceleration program. People came forward and said, we'll pool in resources and give monies over there from our CSR. IKP and other people reaching out, and whether through ACT or individually or as groups, medical device manufacturers, including my own company, came forward and gave grants and as seed money to institutions. Okay, you can take 5 lakhs, you can take 10 lakhs, start a project and let us see if it can be used for COVID times, make a ventilator, make a mask, whatever. So this kind of ecosystem, which we've seen in the last 2 years, has been really wonderful. But within that also, we found that there were certain champions who grabbed that opportunity and ran with it. So today we wanted to come forward and share that learnings and also have that learnings because I wanted to understand and interact with all of you at the same time together and learn from IKP. IKP is an institute which is in Hyderabad. You got C Camp in Bangalore, you got Venture Center in Pune, you got IIT Bombay, you got IIT Kanpur, you got all these wonderful institutions. You got Andhra MedTech Zone having its own Bio Valley and Medi Valley. They provided an ecosystem over there to interact with developers, with the scientists, with engineers, with lab technicians, with the industry, to create really successful products which have come forward and they're being sold in the market. They're nothing to talk about, but they are there to buy and use. And they've helped in COVID times and saved lives. So how have they succeeded? We are here to learn that. Revisit where other people are failing, where government taxpayers' money has been used and not coming out with really commercial products. Where there is a disconnect over there, how do we address that? So taxpayer money is used productively, CSR money is used productively. And this can be taken forward so that India can make more. We can make around 46,000 crore rupees worth of medical devices are imported. Now that's straight away a direct correlation of import substitution which can potentially take place. But that can translate into more than 90,000 crore rupees worth of manufacturing because the same amount can equally be exported because what's good for India is also good for the exports. And companies like mine, we normally target 50% of our production for the Indian market, 50% for export market. And there is no reason why we cannot do that. If we are competitive for India, we should be competitive for the world market. And that should be the same formula for every manufacturer in the country to have half for the Indian market and half for exports, or at least 25% for exports. So I leave it all to you. Today I'm a listener and I will enjoy listening to all of you one by one in your presentations and in the panel discussion as to how India can make in India and make for the world. Innovate in India and innovate for the world. Develop in India and develop for the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nath. With that, we proceed with the first speaker of our session today. I would like to now invite Dr. Tasleem. Dr. Tasleem is the CEO and director of CCAMP, one of the well-established incubation centers of the country. His initial training has been into neurosciences, where he has received a PhD from Max Planck Institute for Brain Research, Germany, followed by a postdoc at UCSF. He's also done a biotech management program from Wharton School of Management. In the Bay Area, he has served as a management consultant with QB3 New Biotech Venture Consulting Group, and in an individual capacity has been mentoring many biotech firms in the past, and he's still doing it. And not just the startups, he's also been mentoring a lot of upcoming incubation centers in the country. With that, Dr. Tasleem, I would now invite you for your talk.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ms. Aditi. And good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here among, the stalwarts of Indian biotech and medtech ecosystem. Great opportunity for me to share a few thoughts. I will try to be quick, but wonderful to be among this particular crowd. So with that, let me quickly begin. I'll just try to share my screen, and I hope I picked the right slide deck. Usually I pick the wrong one. The first one is always the wrong one. Okay, so no, this is the right one this time. So to begin with that, I think that first of all, let me say that from Dr. Nath and Dr. Venugopal and others, I think the theme for this particular session is very, very exciting. I think we have always talked about building indigenous innovation, but something that always has been a challenge is commercializing that innovation. And we have had last 8 to 10 years have been phenomenally exciting for us to build indigenous innovations with. We all know that many agencies, many institutions, many ecosystem enablers, innovation hubs, incubators have played a part. But we did, and we must accept that we did have a challenge of converting high potential into reality of the, commercialization. An important way of commercialization is also its impact, because if you actually build something that is not going to scale and not going to be commercialized, the impact is not going to come through. So it's a very interesting theme, and I'll just quickly give you a perspective from CCAM angle, very quickly bringing it in. Just to give you a perspective, CCAMP is a part of a Bangalore Life Science Cluster based out of Bangalore, along with two other organizations, that is NCBS, National Center of Biological Sciences, and Institute for Stem Cell Research and Regenerative Medicine. Very importantly, together, we are on same campus, completely no borders, sharing complete infrastructure and so on. Total strength of around 1,800 people with 18% capacity, working in science, basic science, translation, innovation, and so on. So I think it is becoming a very exciting life science experimental cluster model that is emerging. And I hope that it will really give us something very good to look at as a model going forward. Bangalore Life Science Cluster, we have at CCAM, we have two larger verticals. One is technology platforms, the other is entrepreneurship programs. And I'm going quick, but just give you a perspective. At CCAM, we have many technology platforms which we connect with many institutions and industry across India to ensure that the research capability goes forward. But something that we want to talk about it today, and I'm moving very fast, is the ability to support innovation across from idea spotting, funding, incubation, mentoring, and accelerating, and commercializing possibly as well. Just to give you a view of it, and I'll try to take less time considering that we are already into late part of the thing. We have now been able to, with the support of agencies like DBT, BioRack, NITI Aayog, AIM, MIT, DST, and many other agencies, including Government of Karnataka agencies, we have actually been able to support ideas at the very, very early stage. But then have been able to handhold them, provide the funding, accelerations, advancement, and so on through that. And some of them have actually done very, very well. I'll not go into details of those, but we have possibly together, we have around 45 to 50 products in market. And some of them are possibly even high end in terms of, looking at the drugs, cell therapy, gene therapy, and all are going towards the phase 1, phase 2 trials as we speak. So this is really a very good advancement, and different areas are covered, not only one kind of area, but working from the difficult areas of futuristic area like regenerative medicines to infectious diseases, to one talks about medical devices, diagnostics, maternal child health. You look at agriculture, waste management, and so on. But I am now coming to the crux in terms of what actually last 2 years, something that we have been able to look at. One of the larger thing with this set of abilities, I would say, that we were able to build over many years. I think when the challenge of COVID-19 came, I think it was a force, a mandate that came to our way that we have to now have something that would deliver and not build potential and keep building potential. And that is something, a kind of an important thing we built. We actually launched two larger programs to address one of the biggest challenges that we had to begin with at the COVID-19 time, which was the diagnostics. We all knew that testing was very, very important. And we all knew that without testing, we won't be able to stop the spread of the infection. But as we know, we didn't have our own indigenous kits even way back in May 2020 or even till July or further down. And at that time, it was very, very essential that we had enough capability in terms of manufacturing of those kits at cost-effective manner, affordable manner, and make it available so we could test more people and ensure that the spread of the infection is limited. Through this effort, supported by the Rockefeller Foundation and DBT, we actually built a larger effort, and this was a new model that we actually attempted, where we worked with more or less 150 to 175 companies who were doing different aspects of diagnostics, industrial diagnostic development, be it the reagents, be it the plasticware, be it the kit level, be it many other analytes which go into that. and put them together and understand where do they lack. And two things we realized very quickly. They lacked the building high quality reagents, which could be backed at the highest regulatory level. Second thing they lacked was the ability, the processes, in-house processes to make it at scale. And we at that time worked with extensive COEs, which we built with many organizations which are here, where we actually could work with them and ensure that this 150 to 200 MSMEs that we talked about here, we're able to work with all of the COEs to ensure that the reagent, individual reagents, as well as the final cocktails, the kits, were at the highest level with the ability, the processes to scale. And that's how we went out. Very importantly, this is the actually impact that came on the ground. We were able to actually build not only larger partnerships, they build the portfolio, number of projects we delivered, but as we can see, slowly and steadily, we were able to actually bring the capability to a much higher level, where today, as we stand, our portfolio, which worked with us not for manufacturing after their process, but we actually worked on their ability to develop and scale manufacture this reagents and kits. Very happy to share again with all of you that now we have, our cohort has ability to produce more than 1 million RT-PCR tests per day as we need. And this is really remarkable. Not only the accessibility came through that, importantly, affordability came. The kit, which we are all paying for possibly around 4,500 in early days, right now we are paying around 250 to 300. This is more than 10 times reduction of cost, or not the price, while the cost is possibly now 50 rupees or 50 to 100 rupees at max for this test per test. And this is truly remarkable story of building indigenization capability in India, which was not possible, but with the support of every player, with the support of all stakeholders, and many of you have actually supported this effort, we're able to convert this for many companies who have now the products and the revenue at much higher number and serving the need on the ground, as we know. The important thing, before I close on this particular example, the important thing is that this was not a one-time outcome that we were looking at. This is now building a kind of a capacity belt. Today, they have been able to build something for COVID-19, but tomorrow anything comes around. Now they have the building blocks ready to turn around and make kits and diagnostic kits for any infection or any other disease, infectious disease or any other disease per se. We have now capability built in, and that is a long-term impact once we have been able to deliver this particular aspect. So this is something, a program called Indigenization of Diagnostics we did. At the same time, second example, very quickly, we work with many collaborators and friends around the same time for something called CCAM COVID-19 Innovation Deployment Accelerator, which was largely to attempt to identify many innovations which are around the corner, but not ready to be taken to there because they may have a regulatory issue, funding issue, scale-up issue, or any other issue, but they had the potential to be applied in the COVID-19 setting. And while we were waiting for any support for international and more conventional support of innovations we get from internationally, within a month of that time, we actually got around 1,100 innovation. Out of 1,100, within a month, we were able to, with support of all partners, to be honest, it was a very inclusive system. We were able to actually put together top 30 stars, which we believe that if they work out, they would make a difference on the ground in terms of COVID-19. And I'm very happy to say that out in different aspects, diagnostics, assisted respiratory devices, pre-screening, vital monitoring, air and surface sanitization, and so on, we actually were able to do almost 75 to 80% of this, selected innovations they have right now in the market, serving people almost in 16 to 17 states of India. And this is really, really remarkable because traditionally for most of this, we were relying on the international innovations. And now we have our own built innovations, which are right now on the ground serving people as we speak. I am not at all saying that we have achieved everything. I think this is just, we have been able to do it because our backs were to the wall. I think what we need to do before I conclude, I would say that learn from what worked, what aspects worked, where did we do better, what did not stop us from actually growing further in this, and ensure that this becomes routine and not only the response in the emergency time or crisis time, and build it for long term. So I think these are very exciting times. I'm sure many of our partners and collaborators like today on the panel have such examples. So very happy to share those such examples, and we'll be happy to add during the panel discussion. Thank you so much for patient listening, and happy to be connected on this coordinates as well. Thank you.
Aditi?
Thank you, Dr. Syed. That was really fantastic. Great learnings for us. Very exciting journey. And like you mentioned, it's the beginning. So if the beginning is so good, we can see 10 years down the line what we can possibly achieve in India. Wonderful. Very motivating for us. I think we lost Aditi, maybe some connection issues. So we can have the next speaker come in. Yeah. We have, I think, from Medi Valley.
Dr. Mr. Rajvinath, I can introduce myself and then carry
please.
on. That was a wonderful talk, Dr. Saeed. Thanks very much for sharing that. So dear all, this is Dr. Anand Krishna, and the CEO of MedTech Startup Center at AAC AMTs at Medi Valley. So I'm here currently looking after the medtech sector of it. So we also have a Bio Valley Incubation Council, which mostly into biotech innovation. So let me start sharing my screen. So thank you very much for joining this webinar. A few selected institutions that have successfully commercialized new technologies are here today. I'm very pleased that you have selected Medi Valley as one among them. So just to introduce you to Medi Valley, we are the innovation support center focused on medtech and its allied areas. So you may notice that whenever I talk about Medi Valley, I'll always bring in Untitled Incubation Mission, Untitled Incubation Center AIC, and also AMTs are into picture, because in fact that's the theme of my talk. An incubation center like me cannot cannot be fulfilled without the support of these centers. So as I said, Medi Valley is an integral part of about 270-acre ecosystem. I should say that we enjoy enormous benefit and for being in such a cozy environment. So like any other institute, we too follow the traditional formula for a product like this. Okay, so a startup comes with an idea, and then we screen them, we identify the gaps, and also fund their CapEx requirement in terms of tools and instrumentations. And we go ahead and fund their prototypes. And depending on the nature of the product, the number of prototypes vary, and right up to validation and testing, we do. But this is something every incubation center would do. But we also offer something a little extra at each stage of the product lifecycle. So a good length of attention is given to understanding if their technology or product is in line with their own vision, with the startup's own vision, and as an incubator, my vision, and also the ecosystem's vision, and overall the nation's demand. Okay. So I would just say, sorry. So, the rules and disciplines set by our team are like the dental braces. There are various stages on product development, such as ideation, design, procurement, validation, testing. The goals and the schedule we place on every stage of every module is like the pressure and the adjustment schedule placed on every tooth by a dentist. Okay, so over a period of time, the product that is realized through this startup is certain to be fit for market. Okay. So right from day one, we work together with our startups, involving the market experts, legal, strategic team, procurement, publications team, HR team. We never stay at the shore and invite innovators to swim towards the shore, but we too roll our sleeves, jump into the sea, swim along with them, and take them to the shore. Okay, so what if they miss the boat? The technology or product is no longer relevant or interest, or the technology is tested to its extreme, or even change of interest for genuine reasons. Would we send the startups to home? No, not at all. If the startup is insincere to if they are sincere to their passion and be really available, we definitely got their back and got them covered. We will re-navigate, realign to the market needs, and choose a different product that utilize the skill set of those startups. So how is all these practically possible? So please take a look at this ecosystem that's also in my background. So the arrow you see is pointing you to the building that I'm currently sitting in. So that's where our incubation center is. What you can see in this aerial view from a drone, you can see the startup center is greatly positioned and surrounded by world-class center of facilities and excellences. Okay, so let me give you just a proportion here. How much of the ecosystem is really the incubation center? It's currently just 2%, and we are expanding. Even after the expansion, it's just 6% of the whole ecosystem. So here are some of the world-class common scientific facilities. We have Center for Electromagnetic Compatibility and Safety Testing, run by TUV, Center for Biomaterial Testing, run by TUV again, Center for 3D Printing, Think 3D, Center for Gamma Radiation, by MTZ itself, Center for Molding, Indian Society of Assembly Technologies, the Center of Additive Manufacturing, Center of Excellence for Additive Manufacturing, that's in the formation, and Galaxy Lab, Center for Lasers, MRI coils, and many other industrial service centers. So what is really happening here? Okay, what really happens? So right from listening to a startup's idea, the first meeting, giving feedback on the market, to registering the company, filing IP, doing the import burden analysis, or health technology assessment, or market intelligence study, journal publication, or right through to product development, providing unlimited access to world-class facility, or finally even hand-holding to market access, such as digital services, and access to GEM portal, 1MG, Medicare Bazaar. So every need of the startup is really taken care. Okay, so even at the end of the prototype development, the best reward an innovator can get is not the certification of completion or certificate of participation, but a pre-order for a product. Okay, what they built last week was a prototype, but they know that they are in the market in very next week. If we give them such an assurance, that means a lot, because it means their product means something to the world. So we ourselves became the first customer who order a batch of products and circulate within our known context for feedback. So all startups are not always commercially minded. They need certainty, security, assurance in their approach. This is our philosophy for the startups: holistic access to world-class resources. There are minimal distractions for them that will take them away from their innovative work. All administrative and financial burdens are taken care. And with these sort of concepts on technical mentorship and strategic planning, having a market horizon upfront, and providing them pre-orders, the startup would get absolute certainty in an uncertain environment and feeling safe, and their brain just simply functions to work on their innovation. Okay. So I don't want to end just with this philosophical statement, but let the outcome talk for itself. So with the giant powerhouses of innovation from Bio Valley and Medi Valley, on biotech and medtech innovation on board, the ecosystem also had added confidence to deal with the pandemic situation. Okay, so here it is. So not so long ago, we were been importing these goods. Now we ourselves became exporters. So in a day, AMTZ has the capacity to make 100 ventilators, 500 oxygen concentrators, 1 lakh N95 masks, and and not only that, RT-PCR kits and PPE kits, and other more products manufactured at AMTZ are superconducting magnets, common most used thermometers, infrared thermometers, and pulse oximeters. So, and yet, a few innovations that attended to the needs of the nation, like iLab, which was introduced to ensure the ease of testing in rural areas, and also O2 Home to enables user to rent oxygen concentrator on a per day basis rather than spending 50,000 to 75,000, for a cost which they may not use frequently. And few more projects, that attended to the needs of the nation is like Oxywheel Project, which ensures oxygen generation on demand at any required location. And again, Safe Zone, which ensures availability of most important medical critical equipments during crucial times. So these innovations had a high distribution footprints in India. We have just given you examples of a few product lines like oxygen concentrator, ventilator, and diagnostic kit. But we have health at home initiatives to make healthcare more affordable and accessible from the comfort of home. To provide early detection of diseases by home screening methods and reducing the pressure on healthcare infrastructure as such. And to give you a glimpse of the international footprint, BRICS Council, an association formed by 5 emerging countries like Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, due to the significant influence on the regional affairs. So a center of excellence for medical devices for BRICS nations will be set up at AMTZ and will be inaugurated on the World Health Day on 7th of April. And to give you a glimpse of another international footprint, the Innovation Hub of WHO selected Kalam Institute of Health Technology to be the collaborating center for innovation. Again, this will be launched and inaugurated on World Health Day on 7th of April. So later during the panel discussion, the members may cover a most important subject on technology transfer, because that is the whole theme of this event. I too have something to share, and we have taken some first few steps in this regard. So we all have the concern that most of the academic research done at the university does not reach does not reach the industry, and becomes a product that serves people. There is a territorial gap between industry and university, and we really need a system to address. So we have come up with this open access system, like International Journal of Health Technology. So where IJHT will be publishing peer-reviewed manuscript of projects of researchers which carry a huge impact on a health technology ecosystem. So it encourages innovators and startups from health technology to publish their innovations and research. So whether you could see, we are called for a few papers, a few subjects. If any of you are interested, just drop us a message, and I'll get back to you on this. So this the initiative is really to pass on the learnings from the industry to the academia, and again, an academy to industry. So this is one of the first major steps it's been taken. So whether it is in-house injection molding facility or printed circuit board fabrication, national sensor hub, I'm not saying that every successful incubator should be residing within a world-class ecosystem like me. But through partnership, if you can give yourself an unlimited, uninterrupted access to a world-class ecosystem, that's equally wonderful. So having said that, this is one world, one family, and we are all in the mission of nation building. Okay, so if you see any of our facilities, our services can accelerate your product realization and avoids you investing heavy capex or to reinvent the wheel. please count on us and just come to us. I also use this opportunity to invite every panel members, online participants, please treat this as an open invitation. Visit our campus. Most importantly, endeavor to use the facility of this campus. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Krishnan, for walking us through the excellent work Medivalley has been doing. With this, we move on to the next and the most exciting session for the day, which is a panel discussion. Before we get into the heated discussion, I would quickly like to introduce our panelists for the session today. Starting with Dipanvita ma'am. Ms. Dipanvita Chattopadhyay is the chairman and CEO of IKP Knowledge Park. She's been the recipient of Top Women Achievers for the year 2017 by Asia One Business Magazine and Women of the Decade in Life Sciences and Innovation by the Women Economic Forum. Welcome, Dipanvita ma'am. We are thrilled to have you as part of the panel today. Moving on to the next panelist, Professor Amitabh Bandyopadhyay. He is a developmental biology professor at the Department of Biological Sciences and Bioengineering, IIT Kanpur. He's also professor in charge for innovation and incubation at IIT Kanpur and the director for the Incubation Center First, IIT Kanpur. He's also a member of the National Startup Advisory Council. Welcome to the panel, Amitabh sir. We're looking forward to have some concrete messages coming from you. Then we have Professor B. Ravi, who is the Institute Chair Professor of Mechanical Engineering Department at IIT Bombay. He's also founder of the BETEC Society, which is Biomedical Engineering and Technology Innovation Center. Also heading the Desai Sethi School of Entrepreneurship. He's also honorary adjunct professor of National Institute of Advanced Studies, Bangalore, a fellow of Indian National Academy of Engineering and Abdul Kalam Technology Innovation National Fellow. He's a well-known personality when it comes to medical devices and medtech innovations per se, and he's very well known for interdisciplinary multi-institute translational research projects leading to affordable products, startup companies, and creating immense social impact. Welcome, Professor B. Ravi. We're very, very excited to have you for the panel discussion today. Then we have Dr. Premnath. An IIT Bombay and MIT US alumnus. Dr. Premnath is the CEO and Director of Venture Center Pune. This is an incubation center based out of NCL Pune. He brings with him considerable experience in technology development and commercialization. He's been working with the startup community for last more than 20 to 30 years, and he has been engaging with larger corporations on research and consulting projects as project leader. This session would be moderated by Rama ma'am. So I'll quickly introduce her. Ms. Rama comes with 27 years of experience in working closely with growth stage businesses across various sectors, be it manufacturing, IT, ITEC, services, healthcare. She's nurtured expertise in management systems consulting, both national and international standards, certification, accreditations, consulting, financial services, strategies, and marketing. I would not take any further minute, and let's begin the panel discussion. Over to you, Rama ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you, Aditi. Thank you so much for the opportunity, and it's a pleasure to be on the same dais with all those model institutions which are considered to be centers of excellence in their own way, and innovations, startups, new product developments. Industry had all this ingredients, whether we call it as research and development or new product development, small innovation. By and large, industry was focusing on all these things as an in-house affair. But somehow, as a consultant, what we felt and what we have seen at the marketplace is last 3 decades, somehow the R&D focus and the focus to innovate something new, the new product development focus was kind of going down at the industry, and industry did not focus. We see the same old products, not much of improvements, no improvisations, and same products hitting the market for too long. There was a huge gap just to come out with some new creative solutions, and even to come out, tweak the products and or the services at the marketplace. Maybe that is what we had in the country in the last 15 years, a kind of a wave where the startup momentum was created almost about, at least I was associated, considering the expertise of all other fellow panelists. My connect with this startups and young entrepreneurs, at least especially the innovators, is almost about 15 years. I could see very closely. I worked with, I'm a member of TAI Chennai, and that's where actually I developed my passion to work with startups and mentor them in a small way. Then part of a lot of these initiatives, I saw 2 different segments in this space. One is the innovations that are happening inside the academic institutions. And I also saw this innovations focus that is built and driven from standalone innovation hubs. And both these are working parallelly at the marketplace. And the kind of vibrancy that we could see in the country in the last 6-7 years is pretty amazing. In fact, 6-7 years, the dynamism and the vibrancy with which, whether it is healthcare technologies in the product space or in the services space, the focus was totally different. And COVID has given a totally different dimension to it. And post-COVID, the call of action is developing indigenous technologies. It's a global call of action. It's not just in India, across the globe, in the global markets. Every country is trying to come out with indigenous technologies and solutions, not only in the healthcare space, even in other domains. We always felt that, at least as stakeholders, what we could feel is both these innovation hubs, all of them are funded by governments or various governmental agencies, or they do get some private grants or CSRs. But somehow the DNA was a little different, is something which we could figure out. And the kind of the focus maybe they have built in the process. These are the things which we are also listening to this marketplace conversations also. So that's when we thought, like, let's try to bring a combination and pick up model institutions who have immensely contributed to strengthen this ecosystem, to nurture, help them incubate these or their resident companies to scale up, to grow. Just 3 rounds of questions that I would like to ask the panelists, because we do have, as I said, academic institutions which are also driving this innovations focus, and we do have standalone and innovation hubs who are also contributing to this. Just 3 rounds of questions. Each round we have just about a couple of pertinent questions. So just I just would like to ask this question. This question is to all the panelists. Maybe request each one of you to address it one by one. Do you think, as an institution which has contributed so much to the innovation ecosystem at the marketplace, do you think that you have fared reasonably well in guiding your incubatees or your resident companies to move from an idea stage to a go-to-market stage successfully? And when all these resident companies or incubatees of yours, are they actually building innovative indigenous technologies to address the domestic market's needs? Or is the focus too much on novelty aspect? Because we keep listening to the innovators at the marketplace that, so much of novelty is there. We are focusing so much on the novel technologies. So that novelty quotient is also appears to be slightly on a higher side. So we just wanted to hear from you as an incubation center, like what are your views on this? Maybe we will start with Deepanvita ma'am on this.
Thank you, Rama. This is actually a wonderful setting to discuss a problem that all of us are facing in some way or the other, be it an incubation center, be it at the startup level, be it at the policy level, be it at the industry level. And Rajiv is smiling because he's facing this all the time. So before getting into the problem aspect of it or answering, let me tell you who we are. Because you may be knowing us, but there may be people who may not know. So IKP Knowledge Park is a research park and incubator. So it's a 200-acre research park in Genome Valley, Hyderabad. And we were set up in 2000. So we have a legacy of 21 years where we looked at how the innovation ecosystem in pharmaceutical, life sciences, biotech, agriculture can be developed. And also, we have incubation center in Bangalore, which is largely focusing on technology and medtech. So what I'll do is I'll talk about, and then what we do is we do a lot of virtual incubation where we go pan-India to help startups. So when you are asking whether we have been, your first question, whether we have been kind of being able to do relatively well in terms of taking our companies from an idea stage to a go-to-market or a commercialization stage and products, because what Dr. Rajiv Nath clearly mentioned, it doesn't matter whatever you're doing, until and unless we see your product in the market, that's the proof of the pudding. So our companies will talk about us. So we have supported about 800 startups and innovators, out of which 50 are large companies. But I'll tell you what we provide to ones that are small, and I'll take a few examples and talk about it. So I'll take 4 examples. One, a small company, a startup company resident within our park and has been acquired by a company within the park. So what I did was I just picked up a few examples of different kinds, so just it gives a flavor. So what happens is there's this company, Enzibita Biotech, which was a nutraceutical company. It got a BIG grant. He was actually working in a company, large company called DuPont within IKP. He started on his own when he saw that this incubation center and the BIG grant and all that. So he asked whether we can do that. I said, please come over. So he started in 2016, and then his product was ready. He had to really do all the trials. And then by that time, there was a company in the park in IKP campus. It's called Porous, I think it's Porous Technologies or Porous Life Sciences. So Porous is a 1,000 crore company. And it also in 2018, I think, got some SSA venture capital infusion and so on. So Porous started a company called Porous Bio. And Porous acquired that technology from Enzibita. And so it's a nutraceutical product. So they were not in the bio space at all. They were more into API and formulation space. They saw this opportunity. When you bring in a small company, you say that this is a technology that's developed, anyone is interested. So within the park, there's an ecosystem of acquisitions possible. So that's one area, though this is not a medtech thing, but I thought the acquisition thing I'll just talk about. Then I'll talk about a company in Hyderabad, Startoon Labs, which is in another incubator called VHub, but we kind of mentally incubate and mentored them. So we have provided, just not, he's a BIG grantee from IKP, but also we have helped him raise angel funding. We have helped him with funding that we have. He's part of our Deep Technology Accelerator. We've helped him with the go-to-market strategy. His product launch happened about 1.5 months back or a month back, where the founder of Shanta Biotech, Varaprasad Reddy was there, and he was there to bless. So this is the kind of ecosystem you can create when you get Varaprasad Reddy there, and then Sunshine Hospital MD is actually validating his technology. So this is about a rehabilitation physiotherapy technology for monitoring the efficacy or the results of the physiotherapy that's being provided. So this is the kind of commercialization that I can talk about within Hyderabad. They are one of our companies, but not physically located. Then I'll take example. You have to tell me, because there are so many examples to give. I'll take one more minute, and because then we can talk about other things later. There's a company called Dozy, which is turtle shell, which is in our Bangalore incubator. So it's a contactless monitor. They were extremely, their product was extremely beneficial during COVID times, where a step down ICU could be easily converted from a normal bed. I think they did 60,000 beds or 6,000 beds, and they're looking at more 50,000 beds in 40 districts in the country. They're now present in 3 more countries. They're signing up with US for their technology transfer. They raised in all about 139 crores. So, and we help them with fundraising and market connects, hospital connects, and so on. So this is how we mentor our startups. There are other examples I have, but I think I'll stop here and we'll hear others, and we'll come back again. Thanks.
Yes. Just wanted to ask that the same question.
Yes.
I'm asking this pertinently on this innovation part of it, like all these technologies incubators are talking about. The novelty quotient part of it. See, why I'm asking the question, but it's a pertinent question, is because this has got to connect with the regulatory approvals and compliances, more the novelty quotient, longer the commercialization challenges, validation challenges, market acceptance challenges. So what country, for example, Department of Pharmaceuticals released a list that, there are about close to 400 products where we do not have domestic manufacturing in the country.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe what we need is an indigenous focus to address those market needs or the unmet needs of the country. On the other side, we are also seeing future technologies with a lot of novelty quotient, and so that is why I'm asking.
So what happened is we actually focus on innovation. That is something that we look at, but we don't look. We just look at what the pain point you are solving.
Right.
Whether you are changing the status quo, whether you're doing things in a way that helps your beneficiaries more than what it is doing today. Is it affordable? So there are certain criteria that we apply. And so innovation is there, whether it's a business process innovation, whether it's a technology innovation, there has to be innovation to disrupt. And disruption is what we want, whether you're disrupting the market locally or the market elsewhere, because if there is a product already available and a 10% tweaking here and there is not going to change a doctor to change the product to a new product. There has to be some disruption that they have to believe. And what you're talking of indigenous things, then I will get into Huel Life Sciences. This is a PCR diagnostic, and they actually got into their reagents, enzymes, everything locally manufactured because export was a problem. So I kept the Huel example for a later discussion, but yes, I can talk about Huel now. Yes.
Thank you, ma'am. Very interesting. Thank you. Now we can take the inputs. We can ask the same question to Professor Ravi.
Yeah, let me first say that thanks to everyone here, and thanks to Rajiv ji. Excellent platform. I'll just say what I have to say in maybe a couple of minutes. See, first of all, IIT's job is to teach. Our product is our students, not products we are talking about. So let's be very realistic about what we are trying to do. And I'm speaking for all IITs. Although myself and Kanpur are there, Bombay and Kanpur are there, this is true for all IITs. Delhi, Madras, Hyderabad, Guwahati, Kharagpur, they're all doing, they all have medical medtech centers or innovation centers. So what we have done differently, and Amitabh, for example, his ventilator became very famous. I don't want to steal his thunder. And similarly, we created a stethoscope which became famous in the COVID times. To answer your question specifically, yes, IITs are now moving from teaching only to teaching plus research. But the research is primarily for publications, not necessarily for patenting and products and commercialization. So some of the centers stand out. I agree, and thank you for that. Now, the question is that what we are doing is actually more like exception and not the rule. Please remember that. In that context, if you look at, for example, our Vedic Center, we have now created more than, in the last 6 years, we are only 6 years old, almost 240 to 50 products, 60 patents, 30 license, almost half and half to startups and local, small and medium Indian companies. We do not give it to MNCs because we want to see indigenous examples, of course. And almost 10 products are in the market or very close to market. So I think in a sense it is good. And almost all of them have been able to raise a minimum level of investment of, I think, about 50-60 lakh rupees. Average investment is 1 crore. And so scalability also is taken care of. So that's okay. Your question is about innovation versus domestic need. So let me specifically answer that now. In the background of IIT's DNA, we have to do innovative and R&D work. But the R&D by its nature is very far from the actual consumption in the market. If you do some input substitution, already people know the product, already know the features, the specs are known, it's very easy to commercialize. This question has been asked me many times, and I have said that we would like to do both. And I remember a specific question asked to me in Niti Aayog. I said, if you look at our smart stethoscope is a known product. We are importing lakhs of stethoscopes per year. What we have done is we have made it digital, and in COVID time we added a Bluetooth, so the doctors need not be in touch with the patients to ask a care. They could be next room or maybe in their homes also. So what is it? Is it a novel product? Is it an input substitution? I would say both. Okay. And the best part is that this became such a big success story. This smart stethoscope created by Ayu Devices is a company, has made it now to the Harvard Business Case repository. I don't know how many startups in India are featured in HBR, but at least this is being, and now Indians will go to HBR to study about Indian startups. I get a kick out of this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Dr. Premnath, we would like to just hear the inputs from Venture Center, please.
Yeah, thank you very much. Can you hear me clearly?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you to all of you for organizing this event as well. Just as a quick introduction, the Venture Center is based in Pune. It is housed in the CSIR National Chemical Laboratory. We work with a lot of different inventive enterprises in different domains. And of course, healthcare is one of the largest sectors. Regarding, and of course, we've been working with a variety of companies, about 15 years old. And at any given time, we are hosting about 70 odd plus startups, resident startups. And there are a whole lot of them which are, we are mentoring them remotely, right? Now, regarding your question about innovative startups, let's understand a few things first. And I think a few things were brought out also by Professor Ravi and Dipanvita. The first thing to remember is when you're creating a new business, you may be creating a business where there is no uncertainty and some where there is uncertainty, right? And the level of uncertainty can be in different things. It could be in how you arrange money, what is the market dynamics, the players, and so on and so forth. But it could also be, the uncertainty could also be in whether the market exists in the first place at all, or the solution exists in the first place at all, right? When you create businesses, especially startups, and startups are a class of businesses which thrive on future opportunities, right? And they're looking for uncertainties. The traditional Indian businessman doesn't necessarily look for those uncertainties, right? So when you are basically looking for high rewards because you're dealing with high risks, right? And that is the reason that they're able to raise money. The investors are interested in looking at opportunities which are future opportunities where they want to invest, and because they're future opportunities, they're uncertain, and because it's uncertain, you need new ideas and novelty and innovation to solve those particular problems or address those particular problems, right? Traditionally in India, businesses were largely driven either by family businesses where they had the money to spend, or people grew on their own earnings, right? This current generation of startups and so on are going to raise investments. And if they don't show innovation, it's very hard to really raise money. Okay, so let's keep that in mind. So let's see where we are operating first of all. Okay, we can always keep pushing scale up of existing businesses, more investments, PLI, and so on and so forth, and that will keep going on. And I don't have any qualms against them, right? But we are as Venture Center, we are looking at people who are building the future industries of this country and not necessarily today's industries, right? Now, in COVID times, let's understand what happened, right? There were a pool of innovators around who were looking at future opportunities in most cases, okay? And a pandemic arose. It created it created an environment of uncertainty. It created new opportunities, new needs. They had the capabilities. They had not bothered to apply it on those, right? You could make ventilators. It's not that you couldn't. There were other players making it, right? You didn't bother to do it because the opportunity really, didn't seem to exist. Or an oxygen concentrator. How many would you make in normal times? How many would sell? Would you really do it, right? But here was the opportunity to contribute, right? And startups by their very nature are nimble. They don't need a hierarchy of decision points. It's a flat structure. People take decisions, right? And they move on. They also pivot. They bring a lot of focus. Unlike a typical academic organization, they're not doing 10 things at a time, right? 10 things maybe within the company, but the focus of the company is typically one, right? A typical scientist is looking at 5-10 different students, right? So that lack of focus hurts at the end of the day. Here is a startup who is focused. There's a crisis. They have to respond. They have the nimbleness to respond, right? And they pivot. They change directions. They can look at new opportunities. They act on it, right? That's what happened in many cases as well. And I'm sure Amitabh also will tell you about that. Others will also tell you about that. But please remember that the ecosystem was already in place, right? We had spent years, thanks to also a lot of government support, DST, DBT, BIRAC, all of these institutions, R&D institutions, academic institutions who had, and all the incubators, science parks, who had created that ecosystem and that pool to pick from and to build on, right? We had the people, we had a few capabilities, we had mechanisms to fund it, and so on and so forth, and therefore we could do all of those things. So it was not fruitless. It was good. It was good to have that pool. If the pool was not there, you would not have achieved anything at all. Even the guys who are here, right? All of us here may not have achieved that, right? Now, that said, what is the limitation that startups have? The limitation was that they don't have as many resources at their disposal. And very often they don't have the same level of access. A larger company has access to many, many different networks, different people, regulators, consultants, and so on and so forth. They didn't have that, right? And that's where incubators such as us stepped in. Quite honestly, what did we do, right? When you wrote to me the first, I was just thinking, what exactly did we do during these periods, right? If you notice, we had a pool to draw upon, right? We had a pool of entrepreneurs in our vicinity to draw upon. We have aggregated them. We are a high density cluster of startups, innovators. We have supporting facilities, right? But more importantly, at that time when the pandemic hit, I think the important thing we did was we stayed open, right? First of all, we didn't get paralyzed. All of us here, many of us were active doing something or the other. We did activities which gave us permission to stay open, right? We got permissions for startups to stay open. We got permissions to get factories opened for them. Okay. We ran our proto shop to deliver 1 lakh of face shields within a month and a half to police, right? When that's just our own prototyping workshop because they wanted it. And police reciprocated by giving us permissions, right, to act. We had a vendor opened out a manufacturing facility to open out to create N95 masks. We got TIFR, BARC to help us to do those things, right? We know the limitations, of course, but the point was there was a crisis over there. There was a supply chain problem. How do we arrange all of those, put all of those things together? And that's where there was a lot of things which I think incubators did in form of motivation, in terms of, even just exemplifying it themselves. If we had not done anything ourselves, I don't see why those startups would have also not got paralyzed, right? It is because we were also doing those. In Venture Center, we were running a task force for some of the activities relating to the drug repurposing. We put out information relating to standards. Our regulatory information facilitation center tried to put out a lot of information which a lot of startups use. I know from many different places around, and I know many of you also helped us out in that endeavor. We ran clinics to make that possible as well. Arranging money, right? Arranging also just showing good faith. So when my lab was the first company to break to get the regulatory approvals for diagnostics, right? That happened because they had already set up the ecosystem, right? They had supply chains in place. They knew how to work the regulations. They knew how to scale up quickly, right? They could get the connects to raise money. There was also some money which we arranged through CSR support for their multiplexing. But I think one of the more important things was that there were a lot of naysayers and skeptics at that time. Okay, we batted for them, right? That's more important, right? And by the way, there were heavyweights who were naysayers at that time, right? And today, if you look at the level of automation they have done in their production, the number of incremental inventions and innovations that add up to what they have done, right? It is phenomenal, right? Just now, they have also introduced a RT-PCR kit. A set which would be able to do it in 45 minutes in airports, for example, along with a device, right? A small device. I think that those are the kind of contributions which incubators could make at that time. I wouldn't say that we got into it all in terms of doing all the hard work. All the credit goes to the startups. We did hard work in a different way, but I hope that helped. But innovation is the reason why we got together in the first place, right? So I think it's important to recognize that also. The novelty part is actually also very important. Tomorrow's, for our country to be having companies which are not redundant tomorrow, they need to have in-house innovation capacity. And that's what these startups hopefully will bring to the table, right? So I'll stop here. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for those insights. Over to you, Mr. Bandyopadhyay. Amitabhji, we would like to hear your views also, please.
So, first of all, thank you all. Between Dipalnitadi, Professor Ravi, Premnath, they have pretty much covered what was there to say. I would make a couple of points which was not made. So, as Premnath was saying, what the incubators actually brought to the table. So, our challenge was to bring out the product at a very fast pace. We did not, like, whether from the nation's perspective or from the business opportunity perspective. We all know that whoever produced oxygen concentrator after, say, August 2021, they could not sell a single piece. Therefore, the speed was needed. So what we did, 3 different examples. In one, case, the Swasa N95 grade mask. What was needed there was actually very simple. For those of you who didn't know, Swasa technology was developed by Professor Ashutosh Sharma and his students at least 4 or 5 years back. The mask was making absolutely no business because it was designed or promoted for an anti-pollution mask. When the pandemic hit, Sandeep Patil immediately realized that the same mask can be used for COVID purposes. The challenge was that in the middle of the pandemic, how would he get the machine to manufacture the mask? And because you need to scale, right? The cost for that, the money for that, and the premises. How the incubator supported? You know, like most of you know that being at IIT's help. So phone calls were made, money was arranged. Under extremely difficult conditions, machine was imported. I am not very proud of that it was imported from China. I wish it is produced in the country as well. And the institute was just as nimble. You can imagine that. I do not think there is another example of this, that within the campus of IIT Kanpur, within the incubator premises, a clean room was created almost overnight for commercial production. So in this case, the innovation did not have to happen in that time scale. It was already there. We only facilitated the commercial production. The ventilator and the oxygen plant that we delivered during the second wave needed a completely different approach. In both these cases, the startups that decided to make it had absolutely no clue what to make. They just knew that there is a demand for this and the nation needs it. Like there was business, consideration as well as truly patriotic consideration. Now, if you want to develop at that speed, you cannot afford to go through trial and error. So what we did, again, being an IIT helps. That is, in both the cases, we gathered a task force, which is very difficult to parallel in the country. That is, we had, in both the cases, we started with a doctor, what you need exactly. And that is where I must emphasize the difference was made between IIT Kanpur and many other efforts, that our doctors panel said, you either make an ICU ventilator or you don't waste your time. So we never tried to make the non-invasive ventilator. I am sure if the same advice was given to other entities as well, they would have perhaps been able to, compete. So that is number one. So you always start with, if you have medical devices, you always start with doctors. Then we got some of the best medical devices, technical brains. Okay, like in the case of ventilator project, we got Yasdeep Kumar, who is the global R&D head of Stryker Corporation. In the case of the oxygen plant, we got Dr. Arvind Rajendran, who is a professor at University of Alberta in Canada. He only makes like his research area is this oxygen plant structures. We got industry stalwarts. They are not technical people. They know how to run operations. For the oxygen plant, those of you know that these are really giant structures. So we also got companies who are routinely making such giant structures. Now, so someone who makes boilers for the railways, okay, that kind of people. Again, from within our alumni network. And people who understand supply chain. So in both the cases, we did that, and the company's job was only to execute the engineering part. Everything else was taken care of by the incubator. Now, I would not call these innovative products. I will simply call this a development process innovation. So that is one genre that is going on. Now coming to your other question, that if we take a stance, and Professor Ravi was knows very well, we are both partner of ICMR trying to do something in the medtech space. If we take a stance that we will only make devices that do not exist in the world, and if we take that stance today, chances are very high that we will not be able to do anything because the ecosystem does not exist. So, and at the same time, our country is importing, Rajiv ji gave the number, 64,000 crore rupees. So there is therefore a need. The country needs indigenization. Now, when you are doing indigenization, I will give you a concrete example. Right now, we are trying to make an artificial heart, like a left ventricle assist device. This is not for the faint heart. This is a very challenging one. But it is not that the product does not exist. There are 3-4 companies around the world that makes it. But all of you know that the product that is out in the market today, the technology must have been and particularly if it is a complex product, the technology must have been developed 10 to 15 years back. Because, on the same technology, you did all the trials and all those things. By the time it came to the market, it is in the market for the last 5 years. It's a 15-year-old technology. So then you have an opportunity to take a fresh look at it and ask that, can we innovate, whether in the design, whether in the process, whether in the architecture, so that it is affordable, it is easier to manufacture in the country, and more Indian context specific. So there is a distinct innovation scope there, and there are several such products that are in the pipeline where it is happening. And it is a little strange. Our country requires products that are not necessarily required in the Western countries. These are not very difficult products to make. Like if you go to a doctor in UP, a pediatrician, he will tell you that, look, the poor parents, they take the newborn to home during winter times. They do not realize that the ambient temperature drops and the baby dies of hypothermia. And they have they are not aware enough to figure out that this is going to happen. So we need a temperature sensor for the baby and the room to body temperature gradient measurement all the time, so that if things go wrong, an alarm will go off. Now, I'm pretty sure that in a developed country, such a product is not needed because you are in climate control situation all the time. This is not an enormously difficult technology, but our country needs it. So you produce it to serve your country and make business. So the way at IIT Kanpur we are operating is we have 2 different pools. Like thankfully now that the medical school is coming up, so there is an enormous R&D effort that is going on, and I have the privilege that I actually chair that task force. So I am conceiving all the different activities that will happen. So, and the institute is nimble enough to allow the startups to be in the middle of it. So all the projects that are being conceived on the device side, it is being conceived with the startups kept firmly in the center, that the academia will develop it in consultation with the startups, often giving out part of the work to the startups. But 2-3 things cannot be compromised. One, the quality absolutely cannot be compromised, because if we make a second-rate product, that will certainly kill Indian medical device industry forever. Second is that the regulatory process must be thought through from the very beginning, so that you do not stumble upon at the end of it. So that's where we take advantage of our friends like an alumnus, Mr. Anil Jodi and Satyendra ji and all these people. So because as Premnath very rightly said, and Dipandita said, that the ecosystem has been created for last 12-15 years. Now we are ambitious. We are going to the next level. We are still unlikely to make absolutely first in the world kind of products as yet. But when Social Alpha in collaboration with MedTech Valley, MediValley makes an MRI, we applaud it because we need that kind of an innovation. So the next phase, I would say that in another 5 years, 10 years time, you will see that absolutely, because see what will happen today, like when I am creating this R&D ecosystem for the med school, at least 15 to 20 IIT Kanpur alumni, I am consulting with them on a routine basis. They are electrical, mechanical engineering graduates and doing fantastic outside in the medtech development ecosystem. They do not even look at India because this ecosystem does not exist. So 5 years, 10 years down the line, when all these players and more will produce some 500, 600,000 different medical devices that will be in the market, so then the ecosystem will be there. Then the new brains will focus on this. Existing people will move back, and then you will see the magic will start to happen. Therefore, I am very, very optimistic, and I want to thank all my colleagues who are doing a fantastic job in all over the country.
Thank you. Thank you for those rich insights. I just wanted to ask a second question, the focus of academic institutions and then the focus of the standalone hubs. Okay, a quick question, because there is a perception, as I said, in the marketplace that academic institutions somehow they carry a lot of research focus to this innovation ecosystem, and there is a perception in the marketplace that nothing is moving beyond the prototype development when it comes to commercialization in the academic institutions. There is also a perception that the standalone hubs walk that extra mile in guiding those incubatees to hit the commercialization faster. They help them to accelerate, and a lot of hand-holding is happening in the standalone hubs. This is the market perception. So I just wanted to have a quick views. Maybe I will start with standalone hubs. Deepanvita ma'am, over to you. What is it that as standalone hubs, how is it that you have a different DNA that is different from academic institutions?
So, thanks. This is a very good question for debate, but I must tell you, we all together put the ecosystem. It is just not an academic hub or a standalone hub. It is everybody put together. If I'm talking of Hyderabad, then it will be CCMB, IICT, Hyderabad University, IKP, P-Hub, B-Hub. Everybody put together is the ecosystem. We are interested in seeing solutions come out. If you're talking nationally, definitely the IITs, the IIT Madras Research Park and IIT Incubator, they're complementing each other. Whether it's a CSIR laboratories, whether it is the NCBS and the entire ecosystem, IIC, you would know that if you ask me which one is our first life science or biotech incubator, it is actually the Astra Research Center in that was put up by, it was then not AstraZeneca, it became AstraZeneca. It was Astra in, I think it is 1987, they became operational just next to IIC campus. And they incubated the stalwarts like Gangajan and Bangalore Genie and so many others. So that's the first corporate incubator. If you asked about an academic incubator that really commercialized, that's CCMB. Prasad Reddy's technology, Shanta Biotech was incubated at CCMB. Then you come out, you become big. So we have fantastic incubation centers where there it's of course IISc and Astra work together to bring out these fantastic technologies. I would say CCMB was a forerunner, and then there are people like IKP, where we felt that we are close to a large number of research institutes, but we have to develop a business ecosystem. That was 20 years back. And that business ecosystem, Bharat Biotech is next to us, the genome value was created by the government, and so on. So, of course, what we bring in is our network of industries, our network of funders, our network of technology people. So go-to-market and taking them forward is a big play. Where funding is necessary, we know various kinds of funding. We of course do, but the role that academic incubators play is huge, and we always work together. We cannot think of an IKP without the technologies coming from, because that's the talent pool. So I think it would be very important. But if you ask me where do we position ourselves, our positioning is to definitely it's an innovation base and the linkage to industry and the go-to-market strategy, the acceleration possibility, and looking at new opportunities. Here, I just wanted to mention before we give the mic to others is, Amitabh, you're talking about this new age companies. It's wonderful to see how the convergence of technologies, how medtech is completely changing because of data and AI ML coming in. There are these engineers coming, and we have this grand challenge going on. It's called Amrit Grand Challenge Jan Care for healthcare delivery. We are reimagining healthcare delivery. So the call is on, and 30. It's a BIRAC with various partners, and IKP is the implementation partner. The call will end on 31st, and we are expecting 75 technologies and solutions for new age healthcare delivery, remote, digital, and so on and so forth. So I think the entire ecosystem is changing. There is no tech, and we cannot work in silos anymore. There is no question. Everybody has to work together. So we definitely need IIT Hyderabad. We definitely need IIIT Hyderabad. We need Hyderabad University, CCMB, and IKP and T-Hub kind of institutions, if you may say, to really propel this. I'll just stop at that. I want to hear.
Thank you. Now, Dr. Premnath, your views on this, please.
Your question was more about, I think you mentioned about academic work that is happening in different institutions.
Generally, yes.
Yeah. So, yeah, as Dipanvita said, there is a whole continuum in the ecosystem, right? In terms of what you start off with and where you end up and so on. I think maybe you're referring to the problem that there is a disconnect in this continuum. There is heterogeneity in the continuum, right? And that's an India problem. And I think everybody understands that. And that's something which we've all been working to try and resolve in terms of how do we, enhance that connectivity. One of the problems you'll also notice is that the ecosystems which are very productive have an integrated ecosystem, in the sense they leverage the whole spectrum, across the board, right? And in many cases, you will find that we don't do that, right? So we might have the largest biomanufacturing hub in the world in terms of vaccines, but if you just look a little further down the road in terms of certain capabilities needed, we do have gaps at the end of it, right? Including capability gaps, funding gaps, all of those things, right? So that's one issue. The second thing I just wanted to point out is there is a very important part of this puzzle, which I think we should talk about, which is the entrepreneur. Okay. See, at the end of the day, it's the committed entrepreneur who is committed to the end point. It's not the typical professor. As Professor Ravi said, his commitment is to produce students of high quality. Okay, his commitment is to train them in carrying out innovation research, right? In carrying out breakthrough research, in coming up with new ideas, solve problems, and so on and so forth, right? A typical academic environment and traditional environment was not accommodating of entrepreneurs as much, right? There were exceptions, but perhaps not as much, right? What has changed in recent years is the effort and the realization that they are so important and to bring them in-house. It's not just research, it's not just innovation. Okay, innovation is just the process of taking it there, but the real key player is the entrepreneur. Okay, that person is going to take all the effort, the risk, the challenge is, I mean, the singular focus on taking it to the market is that person's, right? Or a team of people who are involved. And that, I think, is what some of the incubators are trying to bring into focus, because we are, if IITs are producing great students, our focus is to produce great entrepreneurs, right? That is really, really important. Many researchers will work in the early stages of idea creation, create the knowledge that is needed to produce those ideas, connect the dots, come up with even ideas, maybe take it to proof of concept. Okay, and that's where many of them will stop, because they see their role as stopping there. PhD students who are working on it also may stop their journey somewhere there, right? But we know that the largest part of the journey is taking it to the end point, which is taking it to the product, right? And that requires a very different skill set, different orientation, commitment to the endpoint, abilities to raise money, to manage timing, manage complexity, of all kinds in taking all that to the endpoint, right? And that's a different breed, right? So I think it's a good sign that incubators are co-locating close to hubs which are rich in academic strengths. It bodes well for our country. We should be closing many of those gaps. Simultaneously, I also expect that industry, which sometimes expects technology at a very late stage, okay, will choose to move closer to the idea stage. And if they don't choose, they'll be compelled to, because somebody else will eat their cheese if they don't. Okay, that is what I think incubators are sort of trying to do, right? So I'll stop there.
Thank you. Thank you.
I have a brief point to make, Rama. Apart from incubators, we are a science park, and there for larger companies, our main role is how do you help ease of doing business? Because they don't need funds from us. They don't need any of the government help. They need ease of doing business. So how can we lobby, talk to the government, see that the process, and that's why these associations are also so, AI Made has such a huge role to play, and parks like ours have a huge role to play, because that is what we can help in terms of ease of doing business. Because I don't think any industry needs anything more than ease of doing business. I just wanted to just mention that, because we're just focusing very much on early stage. We will forget the SMEs. So that's why I just wanted to mention that.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Professor Ravi, sir, your inputs, please, on this. When I said academic focus, it's not about this model institutions. You have all crossed key milestones, but most of the TBIs in the country that we see, as Dr. Premnath mentioned, doesn't even go beyond proof of concept, or it just stops there. So this is how there's a perception that academic institutions treat this as R&D projects. Maybe your inputs on this, please.
So let me say, and I'll connect a few dots which others have said, and it's really very, very good points. See, if you let's look at some statistics, okay? If you look at the total number of startups in the country, I think they're talking about 65,000 in the last 10 years or so.
Yes.
And if you look at the numbers of them in healthcare, healthcare is actually number one. It's about 7 or 8%, if you remember correctly. And if you want to look at number two, it is actually agri-tech and food tech and things like that. Also look at Shark Tank, what is happening here. but keep it aside for a moment. The second point is that if you look at the number of patents being filed, and I'm talking about India, Europe, and USA, number one patenting area is actually healthcare. In fact, e-mobility comes number two at a great distance. So healthcare is hot in many ways. Now, if you look at healthcare startups and entrepreneurs, I agree with Dr. Premnath. But see, what we are doing right now in all 80% of what is being happening in all incubation centers, including BITIC, our lab, is that we are doing by and large simple stuff. Diagnostics, screening devices, surgical instruments, okay. Very few are doing implants, which actually has a timeline of 5 to 6 years. We did a tumor knee implant, which took us 15 years from idea to market, okay, clinical trials actually. So if we are talking about real global success, I think we have to look at eventually, I would say, deep science or deep tech healthcare startups, where the science takes sometimes years to establish. And that is where IITs and IISs come into the picture. Look at the kind of resource that IITs has. In IIT Bombay, for example, has 700 plus faculty. They're all leaders in their areas. And for healthcare, you don't need only healthcare. Just look at the room here. Premnath is chemical, Taslim, I think, is biotech, I don't know. I think Amitabha is bioscience, Deepamita is electronics. I don't know, I'm mechanical. And I think you are commerce, right, Ramaji? Binding all of us.
Yes, I am a commerce.
Look at the people in the room. So faculty of IIT, if you look at 700 faculty from material science to bio to electronics to software, you do need all of that. And if you look at number of students on the campus, we have now 12,000 students. And these are best of the best people in the country. Not to mention the alumni, in lakhs of alumni who have actually, and don't look at alumni for just money, but actually for market information, for expertise, for resources, so overall, huge thing is there. If I just take one word, IITs have a lot of resources, whereas the standalone incubators have a lot of focus. Okay, and that's the differentiator between the two things really. If IITs really get into focus into healthcare, and of course join hands with the standalone ecosystem, because they are very, very focused on the later TRLs. TRL 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and so on. IITs are good at from TRL 1 to, I would say, 5 or 6 or something like that. And Premnath would know that I have been talking about one valley of death between the two TRLs. I classically say between academy and industry, and incubators actually are trying to fill the gap. But I classically say that who is going to fill the TRL where you have to create a batch of 25 products or 50 products for clinical trials, lab trials, preclinical lab trials, market trials, and so on. There's no facility in the country except AMTZ. But AMTZ is in one corner of the country. We need such medtech parks, one in the north, one in the south, one in the west, and so on. Fortunately, they are coming up, but I think they'll take another 3 to 5 years, unless they move as fast as AMTZ, which of course is a miracle, thanks to some very, very committed people at AMTZ. So my one-liner also is that healthcare entrepreneurship is hot. It does need all kinds of disciplines, but also different kinds of institutions, and that point has been said in different ways by all the panelists. Thank you. I stop here.
Thank you for those inputs. Over to you, Mr. Bandyopadhyay, your insights, please.
So I will further break down what Professor Ravi actually said. Just to give you 101 on how R&D at IITs work, or any teaching research institute, not the CSIR labs. So we recruit PhD students or MTech students. We conceive of a project, or they conceive of a project. They have, if it is MTech, they have a time-bound program. And if it is PhD, they have to come to certain solution. They do it and then they move on. Now, if a student has taken a product that did not exist to TRL 2 or TRL 3 level, the system does not incentivize the next student to come in and take it from TRL 3 to take it to TRL 5. Okay. Therefore, I also look at the patent cell of IIT Kanpur. So majority of the patents at the IITs are filed at TRL 2, TRL 3 level. Now, the industry, for a variety of reasons, and I'm sure there must be some justification to it, does not want to look at technologies that are at that early stage. Now, this is where my office's role comes in play, that can we map early, like these patented technologies of an IIT to a good, competent startup who will figure out the business case of it, and then you bridge the two worlds, that is the technical depth of the professor who took it up to tier 3, the focus of a startup that Dipannitadi talked about, and the resources of the incubator. If this can be done on a routine basis, then you will see academic research transitioning onto market product routinely. I will give you a very specific example, not from medtech, but from agritech. One of my colleagues developed a soil testing device. Okay. And I know as an academic, it is absolutely one of its kind. There is no competition nearby. We tried some big ticket industries, and they simply said that we are not interested. Like after you have done everything, got the permission and license, falana tikana, then only we will take it. And the faculty member does not really have the bandwidth to do that. Then I found out one agritech startup. You must have seen in newspaper reports. And now that one startup is being mobbed literally, because everybody sees the importance of the product. When we approached them, they did not bother. I want this to be made into a routine practice. So now my colleague is helping him into the giving the product the final shape, connecting him to different places for getting the certification. And that's where I would echo Dipannitadi and make an appeal to you and Mr. Nath that let us figure out ways for very close cooperation between industry and academic institutions. And if it is at all possible, take up products that are at early TRL level with an industry academia collaborative research grant. वो भी सरकार से जेब से पैसा नहीं जाएगा. But the experience of the industry will help us accelerate the journey to the market. When, like otherwise, startups are always there, but sometimes a large industry can come in and make the whole process much faster. So yeah, I'll stop there.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for those rich insights. Actually, there is a third round of question, but I'm not proceeding with that because that has popped up in the form of a question from an audience. So the same question, whatever was created for third round, there's a specific question from the audience. We would like to have a couple of questions from the audience so that the panelists can respond. Now, there's a question from Mr. Vashisht, Mr. Subhash Vashisht. Request your inputs. Do we have a medical product development process? Just a second. Yeah. Do we have a medical product development process to connect the innovation to commercialization? Is there a defined process or some kind of a connect between the CSIRs or IITs to industries? So this is the commercialization. Even my question was actually only on that. The third round is whether these innovation hubs are seeking the industry help and guidance to hit faster commercializations. So this is a question from an audience. Maybe I would like to request any one of you to take up this. You would like to answer this, please?
At least at IIT Kanpur, we don't have any such process.
Yeah.
I am sure it will take another 4 or 5 years when it will become more routine. Process will be developed. Right now, it is more ad hoc.
Because anybody else would like to answer the same question? Are the hubs taking the help of the industry for commercialization? Anybody else would like to answer this?
Let me give a different kind of answer.
Yeah.
See, earlier we were focusing more on pushing, not pushing, our own innovators, which is our own students, or many times working professionals resigning from their jobs and joining Betik, our lab. And they would say, I would commercialize it myself by creating a startup company. That was our initial focus. But once a few of those started coming out and the stories started coming out, now we have, I think, more than 10, 15, maybe 20 companies. They are primarily small and medium Indian companies who cannot set up R&D labs. They don't have that kind of a budget or bandwidth or even the kind of environment to attract the kind of talent that is required for medtech R&D. They are coming to us saying that, can you become our R&D lab? We know the market. We know exactly what the customer needs. But can you do a basic R&D product development? And also we go our lab is ISO 13485 certified. So we can actually create a dossier with everything that they need, including bill of materials, the component specifications, the process, the quality checks, everything we can do. We can do even preclinical trials, basic lab safety, biological, electrical, mechanical safety, and so on, with, of course, different entities. And then we just get into the pilot clinical trials, initial clinical trials. Then we say, now you take over to the main trials and then take it to commercialization. So that is happening now. So it is like Amitabh said, it was initially ad hoc, but now we have a continuous stream of companies coming to us. And it is not only for IIT Bombay. I think I know IIT Madras is happening, IIT Delhi it is happening. So I think as maybe we are like the initial runners or initial things, but I think slowly the ecosystem is changing, that people are recognizing there's a need for a more streamlined process as well. I mean, we have kind of defined it. So we call it as a 4D process. We say step 1 is to define a unmet need where doctor plays an important role. Then you develop an innovative solution where the researcher or engineer plays a critical role. Then you deliver a validation device where the entrepreneur plays a role with a startup founder or an industry professional. And finally, the deliver stage where you take it back to the patient or a hospital where investors have to be there, because otherwise you can't scale up for mass production. So doctor, researcher, entrepreneur, and investor define, develop, deliver, and deploy. We also call it as bedside to bench to business to bedside. Or if you put another way of looking at it, from idea to invention to innovation to impact. So we have connected all the dots to create some kind of a mental map, mental model. And that is now working out. And many Betik is now no longer one lab at IIT Bombay. We have now 15 Betik centers, mostly in Maharashtra, but also now with many other small colleges coming saying, we want to have a Betik. In North, when I went somewhere, I said, Betik ki beti de do humko, you know. I said, of course. Jarur. I said, absolutely. So it's good to see that people are in fact, I'm making my notes profusely. And everything that Prerna says or Taslim says and everyone says, I'm making my notes. It's a fantastic learning for each other. So again, thanks to Rajiv for thinking about it.
It's a very interesting question from Anjali Randhalia. It's a very interesting question. What are the various channels to support commercialization of products in private and public sectors? So this is a question. The focus is so much on commercialization now. This is something which is coming up in various formats. So what are the various channels, like what are all the formats of commercialization? Yes, pushing commercialization through private equity investments or through some acquisitions or transferring the technology to the industry. It can be in many formats. And maybe something like this is not available. Various channels, which are all the commercialization routes that can be explored for various products in private and public sectors. Maybe I think we may have to start working towards addressing all this. Maybe if it's available somewhere with some PSU institutions, we can look at it, or maybe seek the help of associations if something is available.
The question has to be a little more specific than that. Generally, what happens is technology is developed in most of the CSR, IITs, IAC, all the labs.
Right.
what happens is we publish those inventions on a
Yes.
page, usually
Yes.
the R&D page or something like that, or patents are there. And industry can, once the work is done and patented, then industry can say, come and say, please license to us. But Amitabh said already, most patents are at a TRL 3 or 4 stage. What industry wants is a complete dossier blueprint of not just know why or know how, but also show how. In fact, if possible, even a turnkey arrangement. Okay, so that's the issue. But we are now seeing that industry sometimes coming and say we would like to sponsor a research, and we are there from the beginning to end. And that's a better, in my opinion, partnership between, and many again examples are there in IITs also.
Maybe something like in black and white, something can be created so that at least for the first time, NIPERS have created a registry. I think Andhra Pradesh MedTech Zone was the first institution to put up a portal of various innovations that are available. That is something which is needed. NIPERS have started something, because something should be available in the public domain for industry and stakeholders to see what kind of innovations are happening.
Premnath, you want to talk about our regional ETS? Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, first of all, see, many of these technologies are actually being put out. It's not that it is not there. The question is that maybe the right people are not seeing it, or they see it and think that it is too early, or it's just something on a piece of paper and not yet over there, right? So there's a lot of process involved in basically connecting technology providers and technology seekers, right? And there's also a process involved in making sure that they speak the same language, right? So in that context, actually, I think Dipanvit also mentioned, and I should say that, so BIRAC, for example, through the National Biopharma Mission, has created about 7 regional tech transfer offices. One of them is in Hyderabad in IKP, one of them is in Venture Center, one of them is in CCamp, and there are several others in different locations as well. One in Bhubaneswar, Delhi, and one in Trivandrum, and one is BCIL, which is looking at certain other domains as well. Now, these regions, I mean, the regions where these people are looking, these RTTOs are looking at connecting with local organizations, compiling the technologies that they are coming up with, putting it out there, trying to connect them to industry. And that's happening also by many of these incubators, while they're also focusing on their incubation agenda, which is focused a little bit on startups. But they're not mutually exclusive. Of course, there's a overlap between them as well. But that said, that effort is also in progress. For many years now, the research institutions are putting it out. The question is, there seems to be a disconnect. I can give you some reasons for it, but I think we all need to try to discover what those reasons are. It's not merely just information. It is also a matter of trust. There is a trust deficit. There's a language disconnect. There are many, many such things that are creating issues. Now, let me just close with a couple of comments for the question. So various institutions have different routes to market. Okay. One of them is tech transfer. And if there are companies who are looking to work with academia, that route does exist. Okay, there may be rough edges in terms of policies and so on, mechanisms, which of course some of the RTTOs are also trying to sort out. Okay, but that mechanism exists, and sometimes it is a preferred option as well. Okay, as long as there are takers. The problem is when there aren't takers. Right. And unfortunately, by the way, this, of course, has been an India problem for many years, but in the US too, it has become a problem today. Okay. And that's one of the reasons why you see a lot of upcoming technologies coming out through the startup route via professors. Okay. So, for example, if you talk about Moderna, which of course is one of the mRNA platforms, or even BioNTech, Pfizer invested in it later in the efforts, but of course it's still a startup which did the work, right? So that's happening because companies are increasingly happy and content with adequate returns at the late stage. Okay, they're able to make enough money without taking too much technology risk. right? And as long as that happens and they are comfortable with that, people who are going to be hungry for the returns that go with high risk are going to be people who don't have anything much, right? And those are us knowledge workers. so it's the first generation entrepreneurs who are going to come from knowledge sectors who are going to create those startups, and that's an excellent second avenue for taking things to market. By the way, there are more than those two. There are ways to go to market through not-for-profits, for example. There are ways to go to market through consortia mode, and so on and so forth. And those we have not even scratched the surface of it in India very much. I mean, there are examples, outstanding examples, but not much. Sorry, Dipanvita, you wanted to add?
No, I just wanted to mention about the NBM projects and the regional tech transfer offices, because while there are tech transfer cells and tech transfer offices and IPR cells in various academic institutions, we do not have that kind of critical mass. And so there are not enough people to drive a good tech transfer office in every institution, every academic institution, and one person cannot do run a tech transfer office. You need a full office. And that's where the regional TTOs that BIRAC and the NBM program has created, DBT and World Bank funded, is, I think, a fantastic first step towards seeing more commercialization happening. And we have a structured process now to see how you talk to industry, it's a long process, because winning trust, as Premnath said, it's a major thing. Valuations, negotiations are important things. But I think once transfers start happening, the ecosystem will mature, more IP professionals will come in, and I think we are looking forward to much more technologies getting transferred, but this will take its time. Yeah.
Thank you.
I think Rajiv has a question.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Before you close, I just want to have a question, and I'm glad that we are moving now from an ad hoc basis to structured processes and good learning from each other on that basis. That will definitely help standardize everything. It'll be interesting to know, do you, any of you have for your students or for the entrepreneurs, any standardized templates or agreements for doing tech transfers, for doing franchising, for doing clinical studies, so that when they go to an institute, they already have a legal agreement template in place, or they have a franchise technology transfer in place, so they can negotiate on that basis, because they're not commercial people. These are engineers or scientists. So
yes,
if any of you have it, it'd be good to put that into a standardized domain so that people can gain from that, I would think.
It is pretty much in place, I think, in every IIT for a fact. It is, I guess, the same approach that the moment we receive an interest statement, a standing committee exists that will make an offer for the technology transfer pricing and the terms and conditions. And then there will be, of course, negotiation, and then the technology, like the agility within the IIT system is very high. So I would say that from the initial approach to the actual transfer, it can happen as fast as within 3 weeks, depending on how long or short the negotiation is. And I just wanted to correct myself when I answered that structured process. I thought it is about the tech transfer part. For the product development part, of course, what Professor Ravi said, we have the same thing. But for approaching industry, we still do not have a structured process.
Yes.
So I would like to just take that question. Also, there was another question on the chat box. I'll answer that also. So IIT has all IITs have a standard process for, what's called as invention disclosure form all the way to technology licensing. What we have done in our lab is to overlay that with ISO 13485, which means we have a form for everything from even when a doctor comes and meets us and saying, I have an unmet clinical need, I have a form for that. All the way to, let us say, bill of materials, everything. There are forms for everything, and these forms are ISO 134 certified, which I think is a great. It took us 2 years to do this, but it's great. I would say enabler for us. Also, what we found is when industry comes for licensing, the dossier which we gets filled up automatically gives them a lot of confidence saying, okay, these guys have done their homework. Now to answer the other question about what is the costing, pricing, and so on, we have 3 routes. When we license it to a industry, we go by the kind of, it's mostly negotiation, but we never look at what will IIT gain from the whole thing. We look at what country will gain from the whole thing. So these are not very large amounts. These are maybe maybe around $1 million for most of, typically about 5 to 10 lakhs for many of our devices. But when it comes to a startup company done by the student or innovator himself or herself, it is a fraction of that. It's almost like a nominal amount. And if it comes to an NGO, which is commits to saying we will give the product free of cost to the end users, we give the technology also free of cost to NGOs. So it has been, the model really depends on who is coming in and what they want to do with the technology at the end of it. So profit motive is, we are not looking at profit motive or sustainability from licensing route. We are looking at sustainability in other different ways. But that question is not asked, so I'm not going to answer that.
And I know both IIT Bombay, I have specific example. We even transfer technology without any upfront cost, only with a promise of royalty sharing.
Yeah.
That is also done. Like, we really want things to be pushed out to the market because we know that we do not have the ability to do it. Yeah.
It's a combination of initial license fee and then the royalty, but these are very small numbers actually.
So I do have 1 or 2 examples where
Yes.
there are Swedish, Russian, and Australian technologies want to come here. They approach AMTZ, and then it's a bit complicated because they are not localites. They need to have they don't want to relocate here for that matter. So they become the knowledge partner from wherever they are, and they hold the IP rights. But we will because it's an ecosystem over 95 companies. It's a wide spectrum. At least sometimes we have a competition of who want to take the technology and buy it. So they become our manufacturing partner and marketing partner at times. And AMTZ also, because as Professor Ravi said, our goal is to really push it quickly. It's not about having a cost associated with it or profit associated with it. We are all in the same object, the same mission. So in that aspect, AMTZ will support plant machinery and infrastructure. So we become AMTZ becomes the infrastructural partner, and the whatever company who want to do the knowledge, they just become the knowledge partner from wherever they are. And the partners we will find they become the manufacturing and the marketing partner. So we have quite a few agreements going on in that line. So I just thought one element that was missing is the imported technology. So that's one. This one thing I can add to this. Thank you.
So thank you so much. I think with that, we will wrap up the session. Maybe we couldn't answer some of those questions. By and large, all the questions in the chat box were answered. We will also try to create some FAQs out of this and then try to send the information back to the registered participants. It will help them in some way. And this is the first step towards bringing all the ecosystem partners under one roof as part of the nation building exercise. And we have to do more such sessions. It looks like we may have to invite all the regional tech transfer institutions and then maybe do a specific session on the processes and the systems that are defined and that are in place. And because this is something which industry, when I say industry, not necessarily the manufacturers, it can even be the user industry, it can be any other stakeholders who may be interested in knowing a little more about this. Commercialization has a very close connect with compliances to regulatory requirements, whether it is in the domestic or an international arena. And there are a lot of issues and challenges getting the regulatory compliances. And this is also one of the reasons why the commercialization is also hitting the roadblocks, and especially when it comes to startups. The longer timelines it takes to get those products validated, the technologies validated, higher the novelty element and innovation quotient, longer timelines to get these products validated. And even the regulators across the globe. I was just listening to a session on by USFDA on the process and everything just about a few weeks ago. Same thing, same scenarios and same situation. They're also discussing. Even when a software gets embedded into it with this and that, the regulatory requirements are too many and the startups are struggling very hard to prove. And then because it's all linked to efficacy also. So they are saying there are higher the novelty quotient, it's longer timelines to get regulatory approvals and clearances. And it's not that they're not going to get the approvals, but the timelines are pretty longer. Even the regulators' offices do not have the kind of skill sets that are required and the people with the right skill sets even to validate all this. One of the reasons why we wanted to understand, because somehow we felt we have also experienced that startups think about regulations and quality. They have to think about these two elements right from the day one. Unfortunately, this is not the case. They think about regulations, they think about quality when they're hitting the market with a commercialization focus. So they're all global challenges, not specific to India. And commercialization will happen seamlessly if the startups and the incubation hubs focus more on regulatory norms, and because ultimately it's the regulator who's going to define about validation, the testing, the quality spec, product standards and everything. So that is something which is also needed. We will keep doing more and more sessions, and now the focus has to be more on indigenous technologies and how all the hubs can help the government with this nation building exercise with the support of the industry. And commercialization, we need to come out with more models and clear-cut documents. Let us see what regional tech transfer offices have also defined, and at least BIRAC has come up with something which we will also look into it. It's wonderful to have your participation today, and IMED as an organization keeps rolling out many such initiatives and programs by inviting all the stakeholders, and we also pick up the topics which are more relevant and which are more prominent and relevant at the marketplace. And commercialization is a problem statement, and then strengthening indigenous technologies is the need of the hour. And so that is how we have picked up, and we are also planning to do one program in the month of April by inviting some experts from US, because we will be doing a session on ASCA recognition program when the products have got to be exported to USA. And ASCA recognition is the latest requirement in US. So IMED is actually planning to invite global experts to guide Indian businesses also to understand the importing countries' regulatory requirements. Many things are changing in the global markets, and all these things should ensure that the commercialization becomes a smooth and seamless exercise. So we will be knocking at your doors as and when required, requesting for your participation, many of these engagements, initiatives. And thank you so much for joining us, and thank you to all the wonderful audience. And we will try to see if we can come out with some FAQs based on the queries in the chat box, and we will also get back to the audience with the responses, and we will take the help of some of the institutions who are here today, maybe AMTZ and IIT SIC being the host institutions. We will take their help also. So thank you once again for your wonderful time and efforts, and thank you to the wonderful audience. Maybe we'll try to catch up with you all subsequent sessions.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Avaji. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all, go panelists.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye.